This is the unrestricted free agent.
The Jimbo Fisher stuff. Were you in the room the other day when he threw?
I was. Part of the reason we had so much fun being Clemson was because we used to talk a lot of shit to them and they couldn't handle it.
You feel fine, but your hands are shaking.
Coach Spurrier couldn't give a damn.
I want to take these athletes and mentor them.
Why can't the Gamecocks win at the SEC tournament?
So sunny all the time, so hot.
Too sunny.
Too sunny.
Fans are going to be fans, and people who understand the sport are going to talk sports.
With some weird dynamics.
It's going to be painful, but I think at the end of the day, we'll be stronger people for it.
Up some strength this morning on a Wednesday, July 20th, 2022, fresh off of Gamecock Media Days performance. Day number 2 yesterday, relatively what I thought it would be, I think. They're calling it a revenge tour now for Nick Saban and company, which is kind of odd for a team that played for a national championship, had a Heisman winning quarterback, and he's got him back. And the guy who finished with the third most first place votes, I think finished 5th, Will Anderson Jr. in the overall voting. The most talked about topic for South Carolina football, a guy who did not make the trip to SEC Media Days in Spencer Rattler. Mike Leach, an absolute American treasure, as always, would prefer to talk about Netflix shows as opposed to football. And poor Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. I don't even know where to begin with him. The fact that he threw out that Vanderbilt's going to have the best football program in the country. You got to win more than 2 games before you can do that. And then he went with the old linen suit. I guess a bold move. Oh man, there's so many places. Let's go with the good mornings. DC first one in this morning. Casey in on the YouTube live stream, as well as Anthony giving a shout out to all the UFAs out there. Kirby and Jason, good morning to all of you guys. Thanks for weighing in. I want to get your opinion specifically as well. The broader question this morning with Will Anderson coming back for Alabama, Nick Saban being on display yesterday, certainly the headliner at SEC Media Days, day number 2, always the headliner at SEC Media Days when he shows up. But mentioning that Bryce Young and Will Anderson, he's never had 2 guys coming back to a team like that. Number 1 in the Heisman, number 5 in the Heisman. But the philosophical question out of this is, would you vote for a defensive player for Heisman Trophy for the winner? I think it's ludicrous that we haven't had a strictly defensive player win the Heisman Trophy ever. Charles Woodson did it back in 97. He played a bunch of wide receiver that year for Michigan as well. It makes zero sense. We've had pitchers in Major League Baseball win MVP before. They pitch every 5 days. Just because on the offensive side of the ball should not disqualify you from being the best player in college football. I'm hoping maybe we evolve. We all saw it with Davian County from South Carolina perspective dominate. Nick went with 33-6 with the record during County's 3 years in the Gamecock. It's about time we figure that out. Do you really think Bryce Young was the best player in college football last year? He was fantastic, don't get me wrong. 47 touchdowns, I think it was. Had all the pressure on him going into the season with already $1 million and having never really played significant snaps, stepped up time after time. Was really, really good. But was he a better player than Will Anderson on the other side of the ball? I don't think so. We all know it's not about necessarily who the best player is, but the most popular player. It's a popularity contest for sure, the Heisman. But would you vote for a defensive player as the Heisman Trophy winner? And then I guess if the answer is yes, what would it take? Clearly, you got to be the best player, the best defensive player in the country, but how much separation does there have to be between you and everybody else on that side of the ball to get you to vote over anybody on the offensive side of the ball. Just a philosophical way to start this morning as we get going. SEC Media Days, it continues to roll on in Atlanta. I am fascinated by the phenomenon. I wonder how long this will keep going. It is unique to college football. Like it's an event that includes nothing of the sport, just coaches and players talking. And then everyone who covers the sport, which is kind of odd at this point. Not everyone who covers the sport, right? And fans can be there, but not really be a part of it. They can kind of hang out and try to get some autographs and see some players and coaches up close and personal, and that's a rare opportunity for sure. But they can't really be part of the event. It's a strange one for sure. But the Gamecocks got a lot of love yesterday, from what I saw, from where I sit for sure. Maybe it's because the bar was so low. Shane Beamer, one of his first comments and one getting the most play yesterday was, last year at this time, nobody's talking about South Carolina football. Nobody was talking about South Carolina football players. This year, South Carolina football getting a lot more buzz, not just locally, but nationally. Spencer Rattler, by far, the most popular topic yesterday for the Gamecocks at SEC Media Days, and not a big surprise there. Just his reputation coming in, the fact that, and Shane Beamer pointed this out, he was next in line after Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, guys that either won the Heisman or were finalists for the Heisman, and then it was Spencer Rattler. The fact that he comes now to South Carolina in year number 2, where the Gamecocks had 4 different quarterbacks last year and still managed to win 7 games somehow, coming off a 2-8 season. The obvious questions now, what more can be done offensively? What impact can Spencer Rattler have? I think it's one of the big questions in the conference overall. And specifically for the Gamecocks, we all know that offense last year wasn't good. And Marcus Satterfield, as a first-year offensive coordinator, garnered plenty of criticism from Gamecock fans. And the line that Spencer Rattler, I think, let us in on when he was talking about his decision to transfer to South Carolina was what Marcus Satterfield told him, that people think I stink, people think you stink, let's prove them wrong together. Will be fascinating to see how that all plays out. Yesterday, I thought, well, we heard about him, what I expected to hear for sure. Been handling everything well. The examples Shane gave on the main podium there of him having seen Jalen Hurts come in after transferring from Alabama, how he handled it. I didn't even put that together, that was Rattler's first season at Oklahoma. He got to see that firsthand. He has a blueprint of how to make it work. Now, he didn't get Oklahoma to a national championship game and get benched at halftime, which is why there are plenty of doubters out there, I think, about Rattler's ability to be one of the best SEC quarterbacks this season. But he has had plenty of success relatively, and did get Oklahoma to a Big 12 title in his first season. And Shane Beamer kind of defending not just who Rattler is as a person, but his kind of football resume as well yesterday, which you expected the head coach to do. Now, what I didn't expect, what nobody expected, was that video that got released right after the show, right after our show yesterday, basically right before the Gamecocks went on their tour. Just genius from the South Carolina social media staff. I don't even know what we call them exactly, because it's more than social media, right? It is just, it's almost the brand leaders there before the Gamecocks did the reenactment of I guess it's a Soulja Boy video. I didn't even know. Completely out of the loop. And Shane Beamer saying that no, he took offense to people who were explaining to him what was going on because he knew a little bit. He had an idea. He was aware of this going on, and I guess it's some sort of a challenge there on the social media these days. I only saw Asia Wilson kind of with a similar type video maybe the day before, a couple of days before. My only frame of reference for watching that thing yesterday. But just the production value alone, I put it out on Twitter as soon as I saw it. Just that alone. The fact, and I didn't even notice it the first few times I watched it, that the players that went yesterday were involved in this thing. And that was the fascinating part about this. Justin King, who's in charge of all the media over at University of South Carolina, done a fantastic job and is immensely valuable. Apparently planned this thing, went and picked Shane Beamer up yesterday morning, explained it to him on the way into work, had the players who are going to SEC Media Days immediately involved there to carry on Joyner, Javon Gwynn, and Zach Pickens, handing over one of them I think took off the jacket, right? The other one handed the glasses. The other one handed the hat, maybe is how that worked. So they were the first few people in the video. Then there's some other teammates in the background, the fire going off when the lights go off and the whole thing. Fireworks, right? And incredible. And just took the internet by storm yesterday. Did you guys see several people commenting? And I wonder how it makes Clemson fans feel. It was you do a side-by-side. Dabo Swinney getting plenty of social media play the other day at his ladies' clinic where he was wearing the pink jacket, pink hat, and did the gritty there. And I got pretty much the exact opposite social media reaction that Shane Beamer and company did yesterday. No, the one that sticks out to me, and I forget, my apologies, who put it out on social media, is that Shane Beamer is who Dabo Swinney thinks he is. Something like that. Just different. It hit differently, completely differently. And the criticism for Dabo Swinney was ridiculous for people that didn't even know that he was raising money. There was the ladies' clinic that raised money for breast cancer awareness and the whole thing. And when you win big, when you make the money that Dabo Swinney makes, you're going to get criticized, obviously. And to not even factor that into criticism is pretty ridiculous. But also, what he looked like and what that video looked like was going to get what it got. That's a pretty common thing on social media these days, right? If you do anything that stands out, you are a very successful person, won a lot of things, a bit controversial to begin with, you're going to get a bunch of hate on the internet. What you rarely see these days is something that is so universally well received that is a kind of contrived thing, right? That's a creative, whether it's a commercial these days at the Super Bowl, the standards are so high that we always have, anything that you have to kind of come up with an idea and then execute it. And it's clear that it's kind of an attempt to drum up some buzz on social media. Well, that's exactly what it was. And it hit as high as, I don't know, I can't remember anything that got as much universal love as that social media video yesterday. And that was kind of before everything hit. So the line was that Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks had won SEC Media Days before he'd even talked, before he even got close to the podium, which is a great example, I think, of just awareness. And Shane Beamer can't get all the credit. Justin King deserves a ton of it. The South Carolina Athletics Department, that department of it, the social media and the creative design or video production, whatever you want to call it, deserves a ton of that credit. but Shane Beamer's ultimately, it's him out there, and he got a lot of the credit yesterday as well. But then the actual comments. What do you guys think? Again, we probably overanalyze this way too much, but it is July 20th, and it is the SEC's preeminent off-season event, SEC Media Days. And it does matter. How much it matters, we could kind of part and parcel that out. We probably overvalue it or talk about it way too much, no doubt about it. In the big picture, it means next to nothing most of the time. I mean, if we sit in the middle of the season and then refer back to anything at SEC Media Days, when does that happen? Very rarely, if at all, unless you're talking about someone like Robbie Caldwell, the interim Vandy coach back in the day, getting into details about how he helped reproduction work at his turkey farm growing up. Yesterday's, I think the comments probably won't be remembered more than this preseason for what Shane Beamer had to say yesterday. We are going to play some of those for you, especially a couple of those that stood out, but it's not that it will be remembered forever. KT weighing in as well on Facebook live stream. Morning to you, sir. It's there's that classic line. Someone in my family, my cousin Frank Monk, told me I was talking about coaching my kids and just starting to do it and the challenges that involves. And he did the same thing with his kid growing up and said, they'll never remember what you say. They will always remember how you made them feel, kind of thing. And that's my takeaway from the overall tour of the SEC Media Days yesterday for the Gamecocks and especially Shane Beamer. It's that video that people are going to remember. It's the fact that, and Shane even said it on the podium, that he got a lot of text messages yesterday from former players, from future players, recruits, positive feedback about that video. That kind of, I think, maybe not to Gamecock fans, but to those in the SEC who haven't paid much attention to Shane Beamer, other than maybe seeing the record, remembering the Auburn win or a Florida win last year, the bowl game and the mayonnaise bath afterwards and the whole thing. Kind of a cute story, I think, from the SEC at large. One of those things to say, yeah, relatively notable, but nothing big. Well, I think Shane Beamer, just the video and the reaction takes a little step up from yesterday around the SEC. Bolsters the reputation a little bit, for sure. You guys let me know if anything stuck out to you, what he had to say, what was said yesterday. Overall, I'd say Nick Saban going in as the headliner was Nick Saban yesterday. He did not step out of bounds. The Jimbo Fisher thing, it seems to be old news. But what he had to say, how high he praised his Heisman Trophy winning quarterback in Bryce Young, and then Will Anderson coming back, just saying he hadn't had two guys come back like that. That, again, I said it yesterday. I will say it all preseason long and probably during the season too. If you're on Alabama's schedule, watch out. If you have to be part of any kind of revenge or trying to prove something with Alabama in the way, yikes, you don't want to be that. Then Mike Leach popping up on, well, again, poor Clark Lee, I think, was one of the first up, at least in some of the rooms. They're different rooms up there, and he had a long opening statement, and just you never want to be the guy who tries too hard. And Dabo Swinney does come off as that guy. That's why I was talking about doing the gritty and wearing the pink thing. And if you watch that video, I don't think you have to watch it from a Gamecock perspective to say, yeah. I think Dabo Swinney has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way in multiple ways in his career. But ultimately, if I had to break it down, it would be for being a guy who seems to be trying too hard. And the Shane Beamer video, I think, was the opposite. It was a kind of, how long was the video? 30 seconds, maybe? Obviously choreographed and the whole thing, but it wasn't that. It was the opposite of that. Mike Leach is not a guy who tries too hard. There's no one like Mike Leach. And he is authentically himself. The classic story of him when he was, I think, taking a break from coaching. UPS guy came by the house one day and he was swimming in his pool naked. So he just got out of the pool and received his package in the birthday suit. I think he might have been on the phone or something too, as the story goes. I forget the details of that one, but yesterday just said, I hate opening statements. You guys got any questions? Let's go. It's the opposite of, hey, this is your opportunity. You have a national platform to some degree. Use that to promote your program, right? Mike Leach has been through this before. This is not the first rodeo. To get Texas Tech relevant, to be very relevant at Washington State at times, to have the track record he does, basically the father of the air raid in a lot of ways. And just like, man, come on, let's go. What do you guys got? Let's talk about Netflix. What are you watching? Stranger Things? Let's get into it. Love that about Mike Leach. Now, actually, like covering him every day, and if you're a really serious sports writer and the whole thing, very frustrating. It looked like Paul Feinbaum was a little frustrated maybe with the rambling, and then it's kind of low energy sometimes, and you wonder, I wonder if Mike Leach is going to fall asleep sometimes when he's talking, like lull himself to sleep. He seems like that guy. And great story told on the Paul Feinbaum show after Mike Leach was on yesterday, which just kind of followed the all-day marathon SEC network coverage. But it was a story, and there's so many examples of these. These are the best stories in sports when you get players or coaches, and you have to have enough years removed for them to speak honestly when they know it's not going to put maybe the main character especially, but probably the most famous, the one with the biggest reputation, it won't necessarily paint them in a favorable light. Greg McElroy, former Alabama quarterback, I really admire his work on the SEC Network, ESPN, across all the platforms there as a college football analyst. I think he's tremendous. I mean, and really maybe set the trend, right? He was in the NFL as a backup, and he got out real quick before he even got cut, I think, at least publicly, and made the move over to TV and said, yeah, I think my future's over here. This was long before Tony Romo made the move, or Jason Witten, or any of those guys. And does a great job. But he was a high school quarterback at South Lake Carroll High School in Texas. They had the air raid going. This was, I guess I just missed him. I was out in Texas from 2000 to 2003. So I think, yeah, this was probably about 5 years later, maybe not quite, just a couple of years later. Chase Daniel is the quarterback that I saw for South Lake Carroll, throwing it all over the place and setting all kinds of records, and went on to Missouri, NFL, the whole thing. I'm pretty sure that timeline is correct. Go back and confirm it if you need to. But Greg McElroy follows. He says he's a junior in high school, out at Texas Tech, in the quarterback room. Not sure. I think it was probably a summer thing, right? Cliff Kingsbury, Graham Harrell, all those guys setting all kinds of records. The air raid just taking college football by storm and just blowing up record books and the whole thing. And McElroy is a bit of a football nerd. You guys know that, right? I mean, just highly intellectual. I'm sure X's and O's wise could blow you away on a whiteboard and the whole thing. So he's, for the first time, gets to go in a quarterback meeting room with Mike Leach there, all these other quarterbacks, ready to soak it all up. And there's a great article. I think it's either ESPN or The Athletic did a breakdown from former quarterbacks who had similar type experiences. Their first one, I think they did, or the most memorable quarterback meetings with Mike Leach. And Greg McElroy, as he was telling it yesterday, just said, I'm going there, can't wait to hear all the wisdom he's got to impart. And he just wanted to talk about how many rooms does it take in a house for a house to be functioning, fully functional. And what he just said that basically all you need is running water to have a functioning house, and talked about it for at least a half an hour. And these stories, it's where if you hear it on radio, you don't quite get the full experience, because I was watching it on the SEC network, and it's just the eyes and like the body language of McElroy telling the story is just it's so ridiculous, right? Or his reaction to it, the idea that would even be a possibility was so crazy to him back then. And wherever Mike Leach wanders, that's the feeling I always get. I think it's one of those where you're in a room and you're looking around at other people in the room and like, can you believe this is really happening right now? And you got some of that on the podium yesterday with just talking with people like they're people. Well, hey, what are you watching on Netflix kind of thing? Now, it's great when it works, right? And I think it has worked a little bit, maybe higher than average, a little bit more than satisfactory is probably where Mississippi State fans are. Need to continue to build up the wins. That defense needs to continue to play like it did last year by and large. And clearly that's been the surprise to me of the Mike Leach tenure at Mississippi State, how good their defense has been and how maybe inconsistent the offense has been the surprise. But that needs to continue. But maybe I did a little bit of the Mike Leach there and wandered down, but I just had to retell that Greg McElroy story. Loved it so much. Running water is what you need most in a house, according to Mike Leach. Today it's Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, and Kentucky at SEC Media Days. We will break down kind of the outlook for each one of those programs as we roll on in this program a little bit later, and live streaming this morning 8 until 10. Appreciate you being a part of it for sure, however you're doing it, whether you're in the live stream saying hi, you're listening to this thing later on via one of the podcast platforms. Tomorrow, Thursday, Auburn, Tennessee, and Texas A&M will wrap things up. And yesterday it was Alabama, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, and South Carolina. And I think I don't think it's a South Carolina bias thing right now. I think it's tough to argue that anybody's getting more buzz, because Lane Kiffin has been Lane Kiffin for a long time, right? With the Tennessee thing from the SEC perspective. Obviously bursting on the scene in the NFL and being the son of Monty Kiffin and the whole thing. We've known about Lane Kiffin for a long time, having the Florida Atlantic period as well to work his way back to the SEC. He's not going to surprise a lot of us with what he busts out. We've seen him at the podium. We've heard him talk. But Shane Beamer is still relatively new to the SEC. I think that goes into the buzz right now that came with he and South Carolina yesterday. And I think you got to be real careful. And it was talked about a lot yesterday about, all right, how do you manage the expectations, the positive momentum with, we got to play football and you got to make sure you're not overhyping it. And the answer Shane Beamer gave was you just got to be mature about it. And I think he does a pretty good job of exuding that, right? You can have fun with the social media videos and make sure you find the joy. He brought that up a time or two. Classic find some joy line. But you also got to take care of your business. And him being who he is kind of exudes that. I don't think he has to preach that as much as maybe some others, because everybody learns better through example than by being preached at. But that goes into what comment I wanted to replay here on the program came from the other room, kind of the secondary room at the SEC Media Days gathering for TV stations, electronic media, they're calling it these days. And it was a question by Corey Miller, who we've had on the program, the former Gamecock, now doing some work for Fox Carolina up in Greenville, I believe. Going to share my screen here and pop it up, but he was asking Shane how he balances the demanding part of his job, the demanding part of being a head coach, where he talked about it several times yesterday about how it's a demanding thing to be a South Carolina football player, but you also got to have fun doing it, and being authentic is the way that he kind of approaches that thing. And that's what I wanted you to hear. And to me, this kind of sums up Shane Beamer in a lot of ways at yesterday's SEC Media Days.
For me, it's just be me. You know, I think sometimes guys become a head coach, and there's a certain way you think you're supposed to act because you're a head coach in the SEC. And I was never going to try and be somebody I'm not. And I meant what I said. Like, it's not easy being a football player in our program. And our players would tell you, like, we work really, really hard, and they are held accountable, and we are very demanding. But we're not disrespectful. We're coaching them hard on the football field, but we're not disrespectful to them. They know that we genuinely care about them. We use the word love in our program a lot. Sometimes that may make people uncomfortable. Not with us. Like, we use the word love in our program a lot and have no problem telling each other that we love each other. And that helps us grow together as a team. And the more that we can showcase our program, there's some great things going on in our program. There's some great people in our program, and being able to highlight them on social media like we've been able to do, I want to, for sure. And there's a lot of negative talk about name, image, and likeness, and certainly there's things that need to change and be better about it. But there's a lot of guys on our team, the three guys that are here today that are using name, image, and likeness for the way that the law was intended. We got guys on our team that back in December took money that they had been able to bring in from name, image, and likeness and took underprivileged youth in Columbia on a shopping spree at Christmas so they could have Christmas gifts. Like, you don't hear about those stories as much as you hear some of the other stuff. So does it need to be better? Are there things that need to be changed? Absolutely. I'm not saying that. No one loves the way it is right now, but there's also a lot of stories of the good that's coming out of it as well. And then, to answer your question, for me, it's just be me, and I know how blessed I am to be in this chair. And I was coaching at Mississippi State back in 2005, and my wife was working in media relations at Mississippi State, and the SEC Media Days were in Hoover, and she was there all week working. So I think we were engaged at the time, I think. But I drove, or maybe she was my girlfriend, I can't remember. But I drove to Hoover and took her to dinner one night. I remember dropping her back off at the hotel thinking about, man, like, how cool it'd be one day for me to be able to be in that hotel as a head football coach in the SEC. And here I am. So I'm sure it's going to enjoy it. And it's a high-pressure job. It's demanding. I get it. You're judged on what you do 12 Saturdays a year. If you don't win football games, you get fired. But I'm going to have a hell of a time, as long as I'm here in South Carolina, and I'm having a blast right now doing it.
As I push the buttons there, again, it reminds me of it, that sums up Shane Beamer. If I had to play a couple of minute clips to sum up Shane Beamer, that was it. And everything that happened yesterday was part of the reason that he's earning the high marks is why he has the job, man. He is uniquely qualified in a lot of ways. And no one else yesterday, or at SEC Media Days, maybe ever. I guess Steve Spurrier probably has some kind of a display at the College Football Hall of Fame, but no one else can stand beside their dad's display and take a picture yesterday like he did. We mentioned it, that it was at one floor above him, no pressure, right? That's just who Shane Beamer is. And, that's easy to be seen as having advantages and being privileged in the whole thing, but I think he's done a tremendous job of acknowledging his unique background. And we'll play another clip from a story he told on the Paul Feinbaum show about growing up. It was a fantastic one. We'll do that a little bit later on. Another example of handling this pretty well, handling just the spotlight, keeping things in perspective, making sure that you don't take yourself too seriously, or hitting the right tone and being aware. And I think Shane Beamer did that across the board yesterday. Trey weighing in this morning with a good morning to everybody. Good to hear from you, Trey. This is a tricky one, right? Because, again, if you talk about this 365 days a year for a couple hours a day, or, Monday through Friday, it's easy to overvalue, I think, or to overanalyze and get way too into the weeds about exactly what was said and how it was said and perception and the whole thing. But at South Carolina right now in 2022, coming off the Will Muschamp era, now having seen a much improved season, and with the SEC East being what it is, and maybe that's what it is more than everything. And DC, a great point, man. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but he was real close to having a 3-win season last year. Yeah, and I pointed that out yesterday too. Like, how close was Vanderbilt to beating South Carolina in Williams-Brice Stadium last year? The Gamecocks got real fortunate that they beat East Carolina last year on the road. Carolina led the league in turnovers, in turnover margin, or turnovers forced, I think. When you do that, you should win games. If that doesn't happen last year, DC's exactly right. Shane Beamer might have won 3 games, and we're having a completely different discussion. The South Carolina football program is in a completely different spot. Nobody is talking about South Carolina having a chance to finish second in the SEC East. Nobody would do what Takeo Spikes did yesterday, the former Auburn linebacker, and predict South Carolina to beat Georgia. But that's not what happened, right? We do have to live in reality. So I'm with you, DC, and that is reality, that he was real close last year to having a 3-win season. But he had a 7-win season. And you can't ignore the struggles. And I think Shane himself did a pretty good job of pointing some of the things that the real challenges, some of the things that his coaching staff knows they need to improve on. But you can acknowledge those and yet highlight the positives and stress those and continue to build positive momentum in your program. A resident Clemson fan, Troy, says, I like it better when South Carolina has a coach I don't like. Muschamp was easy to dislike, and he goes with the Muschamp. And who was it? It was Greg McElroy again. They had a 4-person studio or a 4-person desk one time yesterday when they were talking about what was going on. And it's like he went into some kind of mocking voice, and he was talking about what a good job Shane Beamer has done making South Carolina unique and kind of a fun place to play and doing things different outside the box. And he said, and man, you can really take this as a shot at Will Muschamp. It's like he went into a mocking voice about, hey, yeah, we're just going to do things like Alabama here at South Carolina, and it's going to work out. And he's like, no, you can't do that. And in a lot of ways, that's exactly what Will Muschamp tried to do, right? Now, he knew it. You can't do it specifically like that. But what he didn't figure out, even if he knew it, was how to be different at South Carolina and do it differently at South Carolina to be able to compete at a high level in the SEC. Yet DC says last year's 7-win season for Shane Beamer kind of reminds him of the 9-win Will Muschamp year in year number 2. And I think that's very fair. There is a major difference, though, in my opinion. Now, there are a lot of those programs, like a Florida win. Florida was down in that Will Muschamp year. They were obviously down last year. I think Muschamp got the interim coach at that point, as opposed to Dan Mullen did come to Williams-Brice Stadium last year. And that game is a big reason why Dan Mullen is no longer the coach. Craig's in, by the way. Good morning, Craig. This is called the Morning Crew now? Okay. All right, whatever you want to do. And Trey's also saying, I got to say, Mike Leach was still my favorite yesterday. I mean, if you are of a certain personality, you can say Mike Leach. If you're another one, you're just probably annoyed or confused by him. But let's go back to the comparison here. The big difference that I see is that Shane Beamer does not have near the baggage that being a head coach at Will Muschamp. He doesn't have a failure, a massive failure, which is what Will Muschamp was at Florida on his resume. You don't go to. It still boggles my mind that you could fail at Florida and then somehow talk your way into being the head coach of South Carolina and think that's going to work better. It's mind-boggling. I get it. There's a Bill Belichick track record out there. You fail as your first job. Farrell failed at his first job in the NFL, and then was able. But the SEC is not the NFL. South Carolina is not in the NFL. It is just different. And if South Carolina was trying to sell me that one of their 4 quarterbacks who started last year is now going to take them to a 9-win, 10-win season, any kind of improvement, right? I mean, even 7 wins in the regular season will be an improvement this year if that happens. Then it would be different. But you got proven guys in Spencer Rattler and Austin Stogner, who have done it at a high level in college football. Now, you want to tell me that you don't think Spencer Rattler is going to be one of the SEC's best quarterbacks? I understand your logic there. I get it. You want to tell me that Lincoln Riley playing for him is a much different thing than playing for Marcus Satterfield running an offense? Absolutely agree. And so this is part of the fascinating transition that Spencer Rattler is going to show us that we're all going to get to watch. But if you're a pretty good tight end at Oklahoma, I think you're going to be a pretty good tight end in the SEC. Stogner's got to come back from an injury. I think it's a big question mark for him. South Carolina just had Nick Muse drafted in the NFL, so they've had plenty of good tight ends. And Raheem Bell being the more tight end, I think. Maybe if you go a hybrid position, it's a little bit different, but plenty of talent there. So building upon what happened and having a little bit more to go on. Also, just being who Shane Beamer is completely different than who Will Muschamp was. And I don't want to completely overhype it and tell you, I do need to remind everybody, players like playing for Will Muschamp by and large. Loyal to him. Guys quit the team. Really good players quit the team when Will Muschamp got fired. So there was loyalty there. There was a feeling of family to some degree around the Will Muschamp team and era. So let's not go too far. But the Shane Beamer perception is much different. And I think it's really easy for those of us to see on the outside how Shane Beamer and his coaching staff kind of appeal to this group. And Will Muschamp did a good job in this group from the South Carolina perspective. We got good players then. But how Shane Beamer and company are doing it now is different. And the transfer portal, the name, image, and likeness deal, it's a new era. It is just a different time. Craig pointing out that Zach Pickens talked about how it was too difficult for all the things they were asked to do, so it wasn't just the offensive line that was confused. That was a fascinating comment, I think. And this wasn't talked about near enough for my football nerdiness yesterday. And I'm a bit surprised that King Beamer didn't sing Clayton White's praises more. Maybe he wants to. He doesn't want to lose him. He knows just what a tremendous job Clayton White did and how if you have success as a defensive coordinator in the SEC, you're not going to remain just a coordinator in college football for long. So maybe that has to be taken into consideration as I kind of think it out and talk it out loud. But the job that Clayton White did as a defensive coordinator last year can't be oversold in my opinion. You can't overhype that thing. It was fantastic. Greg, thanks for the heads up about some audio issues there. I'll see if we can get that worked out. Sometimes that just happens, I think. Sometimes it works itself out. Don't know if there's anything I can do on my end, but I'll try to push it. But the job that Clayton White did in year one as a defensive coordinator was fantastic. And the comment that Craig made there, that kicking thing, was he was basically asked, I think, what was the difference between Clayton White and his previous defensive coordinator, and he even tried to clarify, I think, if you ever asked the question, he's like, between he and T-Rob, he's like, well, it's just much more simple with Clayton White. We run in the game what we practice, and we practice it so much. There's so many walkthroughs with Clayton White in the new regime now, but it's simple. We do what we're told to do, but with T-Rob, we would practice something, and then he would want us to do something different, and it got confusing. And clearly it was confusing on Saturday, especially in the secondary. It was obvious. There were so many breakdowns, and that was the confusing part, I think, for all of us, that Will Muschamp and Morris Robinson had a tremendous track record, had good players in the secondary, and had bad defense. Because now they practice it and fix it. And that can be oversimplified too. And maybe it's not quite as simple as we want to make it there. But that was also a criticism of the Kurt Roper regime. And as I say it out loud, these are coaches, I think, that were just trying to adjust when things weren't working, right? To do the same thing as a coach, and it's not working, you're a bad coach. So sticking to it sometimes is the worst thing you can do as a coach. But also, if your players don't know what they're doing, you're a bad coach. So that's looking at. DC, most fans won't be happy with a 6-win season again, but a solid 6 wins will be an improvement over last year. That's a great question too, and that's going to continue our Gamecock football discussion up until kickoff this week. What is an improvement over last season? What is your expectation? What needs to happen for South Carolina football for you to be happy? That's a fascinating one for me. I'm not sure what it is. I mentioned a little bit yesterday, and I know numbers, obviously. You go 7-6 in year number one. You need to win more than 7 games in year number two. Just very simply, if you want to improve, move the program forward. I don't think you necessarily have to do that. I think you can, like you mentioned, you can win 6 regular season games again. You could be more competitive in the losses, win the bowl game again, and you can still, I think, have a bunch of goodwill from Gamecock fans through 2 years. Now, I don't think you can do that for a 3rd year. I think you can get a bit of a 1-year pass there after just the massive infusion of positivity, energy, enthusiasm, goodwill, good feeling, good vibes. You wouldn't have that same sort of feeling this time next year if you go 7-6 again, but it wouldn't flip immediately. It wouldn't go 180 degrees. And I think a lot of Gamecock fans would still believe in Shane Beamer, maybe not to the level they do right now, and believe the program's headed the right way. Probably couldn't have exactly the same coaching staff in year number 3 that you're taking into year number 2 if you finish 7-6 again. But South Carolina doesn't have exactly the same coaching staff in year number 2 that St. Beamer had in year number 1 either. But I mean, DC's very active. But the Gamecocks were close to having a 3-win season last year. But that didn't happen. Yeah. They're going with the reality. Other topics today. Let's focus. Let's move to today now. Speaking of other teams and dealing with reality and the whole thing. Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, and Kentucky up today. So Arkansas is at a place with Sam Pittman, and it's week 2 for the Gamecocks. And again, this is where I have seen schedules work out well, and it doesn't read like that to me for the Gamecocks. Georgia State, not a cupcake opener. Sean Elliott, plenty of extra motivation going into that game. Being the interim coach after the Steve Spurrier era, having coached with Shane Beamer back in the day. I think maybe just that 2010 season. But, I mean, and Georgia State's done it before. They went in Tennessee a couple of years ago, got the win. They've done it. So there is a track record there. It is not just pure hypotheticals that Georgia State can come in and give South Carolina all they can handle with. They can handle, and DC mentioned that, especially the East Carolina game last year sticks out to me. A game that South Carolina struggled and was fortunate to win against a lesser opponent. So you get the opener, and then you go to Arkansas for a noon kick, week 2. And Arkansas is good at what South Carolina is not so good at on paper right now. Arkansas is good at running football. South Carolina struggled to stop the run last year. Really good against the pass on defense, but the defensive weakness was struggling to stop the run. And losing JJ and Inagare is not helping them. And the transfers were good. Some of the best in the country, but mostly on the offensive side of the ball, not the defensive side of the ball. Zach Pickens will be a big part of being able, if South Carolina is able, to step up and stop the run. Jordan Burke's got to take that next step as a 5-star recruit and turn it into consistent production on the field defensively. Linebackers got to play better for South Carolina, in the run especially. And week 2 will be a major test there. And South Carolina is going to be, I think, a pretty significant underdog going in. Then you have Georgia after that in week 3. You got them at home with the noon game. Georgia's defending national champs. They lost a lot, especially defensively. But man, we were talking about that. We talked about that before. We talked about that, I think, Clemson's first national championship, or maybe first national championship game. They lost a lot on defense, and then the next year they come back and they're better. That seems to be, that is where the Georgia recruiting talent is. Maybe not quite to those extremes, right? That Georgia defense was tremendously talented and set records where they had 15 guys drafted a record last year overall. A lot of them on the defense side of the ball. So I don't think anybody expects Georgia to be better on defense, but if you expect a major drop-off, good luck with that. So with those, just 3 games to start, that's going to be a challenge for sure. Then you get a bit of a break with Charlotte and NC State after that on the schedule in South Carolina. A bit of a take a breath as it sets up on paper. But Sam Pittman, what he's done with the Arkansas program, tremendous. The expectations are raised for sure, but only because of what Arkansas has done the last couple of years on the field. So Florida today, Billy Napier, what he has to say, I think will be pretty fascinating. I'll be really interested. And basically what we're talking about with Shane Beamer is that he has hit the right tone in a lot of ways, and seems to do it consistently. That's where other coaches have missed. Clark Lee missing that yesterday in a lot of ways. But Mike Lee always seems to miss it, but he does it in his own unique way, and because he's so out there and unique, that he kind of brings it back around a lot of times. Clark Lee not understanding the media perception of Vanderbilt, or understanding that he can change that with a filibuster-like opening statement at SEC Media Day. But Steve Beamer has a lot of savvy in that way. Where's Billy Napier's savvy when it comes to his awareness of the perception of he and the Florida program right now, of what Florida fans need to hear, what people who aren't Florida fans, how they might hear that. That'll be interesting to me to gauge today. And the first time Napier's really doing it as the Florida head coach on the public stage. Kirby Smart in Georgia will be what they are. I'm interested. It'll be, I'm sure, a carbon copy of what we've heard from Nick Saban and what we heard even yesterday, talking about Bryce Young, how success is not a continuum. Nothing is guaranteed. Just because you won yesterday doesn't mean you win today. Yes, and we'll get a lot of that from Kirby Smart after the national championship. And then Mark Stoops. I think where the Kentucky program is, and the Kentucky fans are, is that Mark Stoops can probably speak more confidently than he ever has, because he's got his program at a level that has not been consistently. And the SEC East is where it is. I think a lot of Kentucky fans out there feel disrespected that Kentucky is not the clear-cut number 2 in the SEC East. And I think they still might get voted in the preseason media poll as the team to finish second in the East. I think if I were voting right now, they might get my vote. I think it makes the most sense on paper. I think they have the most proven production. It's not Florida, it's not Missouri, it's not South Carolina. Talking about proven production. I think it is Kentucky. And yet, I'm not sure that there is a ton of belief outside of Kentucky, and maybe even inside Kentucky, that Mark Stoops can get Kentucky to that next level, anywhere close to where Georgia is, right? Or even able to knock off Florida and South Carolina and Missouri and be that second team in the East. We'll see. We'll see how Stoops talks, because he doesn't seem naturally a kind of look at me, I'm going to make some waves in my comments. He seems always kind of the opposite of that. Those 4 programs, interesting in their own ways, but the least interesting speaker of those guys is Kirby Smart, but when you won a national championship, maybe that'll change things like that. Hope weighing in this morning on the YouTube live stream as well. Good morning to you. Craig says if the Gamecocks go 2-2 at least against Kentucky, Tennessee, Missouri, and Arkansas, and somehow slipping a win against Texas A&M, Clemson, or Georgia, that's what he's looking for from an expectation standpoint. That would be pretty strong, not outside the realm of possibility. I mean, we're sitting here last year talking about beating Auburn and Florida and a program like North Carolina. I would have told you that is no. Absolutely not. But it happened. And so did this little story on the Paul Feinbaum show yesterday. I wanted to show it to you. And I'm going to do that in just a second. But first, I wanted to tell you about the sponsor of the program, Freedom Primary Care. Having gotten fired for not getting a vaccine has changed the way that I look at healthcare in the country, and Freedom Primary Care right in line with what I value most, the freedom to make choices about my own health care. Never thought that would have to be a main concern of mine as an American citizen, but here we are in 2022. And Freedom Primary Care, they can be flexible, as well as respecting your freedom to make your choices. They can lay out a more natural-minded path of care. They can do a more traditional-minded, whichever you feel the most comfortable with, that's what they can tailor for you. And they are responsible to you, not for you. I think that is a massively important distinction when it comes to healthcare in 2022, that they understand that they can give you as many options as possible, but we all have to take responsibility for our own health care, and they are a great primary care facility that will help you in that journey for sure. 803-627-2447 is the number. If you're not in the Fort Mill, South Carolina area where they're located, they can do telemedicine for you, and you don't have to be there in 2022 as well. Just give them a shout. Check them out. Freedom Primary Care. They're based in Fort Mill, South Carolina right now. Naturally minded primary care, putting you in charge of your health. Appreciate them sponsoring the program. Please support those that support the show. That's one of the ways you can help out the show. Another one is commenting on the live stream like York's doing right now, weighing in with a morning game on the YouTube live stream. Great to have you guys. Pumped to talk a bunch of football after the Gamecocks go 2 media days yesterday. And Shane Beamer and Carolina getting as much love as they are. A nice place for a lot of Gamecock fans who just haven't been there, very frankly. And for the last 10 years or so, there's one comment made yesterday. I think maybe that was Shane Beamer saying that, I forget who it was, but mentioning that just the way South Carolina is being talked about positively now hasn't happened in about 10 years at SEC Media Days, and that's about right. 2012. I guess it would have been 2014, coming off of 3 straight 11-2 seasons. Might have been the last time. So not quite 10 years, but it's pretty close. And Steve Beamer doing it with his own unique style yesterday, highlighted by the social media video that got put out right before he hit the trail, and executed perfectly, I think, by almost all accounts. But this story, I'd never heard this one, and I'm sure Shane has told it before, but he told it on the Paul Feinbaum show yesterday about one of the challenges, or his unique perspective, of growing up the son of a college football coach. And it's worth hearing as we begin hour number 2 here on the program, for sure, because I think it's just another insight into how Shane Beamer became who he is, and how he can see things a lot differently than other coaches and other people out there. Here it is from the Paul Feinbaum.
It was awesome growing up the son of a college football coach, and there's so many amazing moments that I got to experience as the son of the Murray State and then Virginia Tech football coach that I wouldn't have traded for anything. But, certainly the day I got my driver's license and turned 16 years old, I can remember this was when Virginia Tech was not Virginia Tech the way it ended up being. This was Virginia Tech coming off a 2-win season in 1992. And I go in to get my driver's license at the DMV in March of 1993. And I'm so excited to get this driver's license, and I can still see the guy to this day. I reach over the counter to get my driver's license, and he holds on to the license, and he says, "If you want to keep this thing, you tell your dad he better win some football games around here."
Goodness.
And, it is what it is. People have a right to say what they want, but it's something that I went through, and we didn't have a lot of moments like that at all. Like I said, I wouldn't have traded being his son and being growing up around Virginia Tech football for anything. But you do realize that there are moments like that, and it certainly prepared me now as a dad. If hopefully my kids don't have to.
And a couple years later, when Frank Beamer put Virginia Tech on the map, that guy was probably bragging about.
I was behind him all along. I knew he could do it. I've been with him since day one. It was awesome.
Classic. Yeah, tremendous story, and that's how he ended his Paul Feinbaum appearance yesterday. And again, only Shane Beamer, only the son of Frank Beamer, can tell that story. But the idea that the guy held on to the license is my favorite part of that story, because that's my power move with my kids when they ask me for something, especially when they do it in a way that I don't appreciate. And at 9 and 7 and 2 now, that's often. But whatever it is, guys. And more water, more. I have some. Last night it was I'm hungry watching the All-Star game at like 9 o'clock at night after we had Taco Tuesday earlier. Come on, man, eat some more tacos. You shouldn't be hungry at 9 o'clock, right? All right, you're hungry. They'll give you some food. Have some cereal. Hand them the cereal, but if they take it and they're like watching the game instead of looking at the cereal bowl, I just hold on to the cereal bowl. They can't take it out. It causes them to immediately react, turn back, and that I'm just waiting for them to say something. They get it back. That was like doing that as a DMV employee, handing someone their license for 16-year-old. Wow. Yeah, fascinating, man. And again, now that has transitioned into Shane hanging out at the College Football Hall of Fame. Well, that's not even hanging out, being invited, being required to be there to address a throng of media as a SEC head football coach, and being able to visit the Frank Beamer display in the College Football Hall of Fame yesterday that he referenced in comments, and it was just a floor up and no pressure to win football games. Man, what a unique path. And again, I think maybe one of the reasons why Shane Beamer is as comfortable being himself as he is, and it is clear to all of us, and maybe even more so the more he talks at something like this, but maybe it's the more other coaches talk at something like this, and then we see him compared to them, and you can just get that feel. I don't know. But try not to overstate these things, because DC pointed it out earlier, not to be a Debbie Downer, but she was real close to having a 3-1 season last year. And you know the coaching staff understands that a lot more in greater detail than all of us from the outside looking in. And they understand. They forced the most turnovers in the SEC, and how that changes games, and how much of an advantage that gives you. And if you don't have that, boy, that thing would have been drastically different last year. Could have been, but it wasn't. And so there's no real reason to hype on that, to harp on that, but it is a good point. And I will keep that in mind as I am talking, because it's easy to get carried away one way or another this time of year, and it's all a bit ridiculous, right? Benjamin Watson pointed that out yesterday. I appreciate his insight. I think it's really interesting. He was talking specifically about the Gamecock as an SEC network analyst, a guy who played in the NFL a long time, raised in Rock Hill, went to Georgia, and talked about how South Carolina has struggled to keep in-state players in the state, which I found was interesting, especially I think at the time that he ended up going to Georgia was the time that Carolina won 11 games. I think he was there those same 3 years as Stadium County. That might be off. He might have been there before. Yeah, I think he could have been there before. But how Steve Spurrier didn't have that reputation, right? And that is what helped Carolina in those glory days. But before that, for sure, that had been kind of a knock on the program, and that's just not always going to be feasible, right? Every now and again, you're going to get a kid who just wants to go out of state, and it doesn't matter what you do necessarily. Georgia doesn't keep all of their in-state guys at the University of Georgia. Florida certainly doesn't do that. It happens. But everybody who was talking about Gamecock football yesterday on the SEC network couldn't help but give credit to Shane Beamer and just kind of attach themselves is not quite the right way to put it, but to become a bit of a cheerleader, I think, is probably the best way to put it, or maybe to allow themselves to enjoy talking about it. You could just tell that it's a feel good story for sure. And when you, especially on the same day that Vanderbilt on the docket, even Mississippi State to some degree, I think it's easy to feel good to have a fun video to talk about, and then to hear a relatively new voice and someone who wants to put out a book, be positive and have fun and have some energy in the whole thing. He says, I don't remember ever having a coach that I will be sad when he is fired. It's hard for me to see him getting fired. He is Carolina. Yeah, that's interesting. Brad Scott is the first thing that popped in my mind. I'll never forget. I've told the story before, driving home Thanksgiving break, my junior year of college. Yeah. And listening to the Brad Scott exit press conference and just feeling like so bad for the guy. And then Craig adds, but he has to win no matter how much he likes it. Maybe this is a more personal thing. Like Steve Spurrier, not necessarily a guy that a lot of people love personally. Lou Holtz, same kind of reputation, I think. And maybe at their age as well, that has something to do with it. Beamer's just different, man. And that video, especially yesterday, the reenactment of the Soulja Boy, I guess is what it is. And I don't know if I've ever felt older watching it. It felt like confused and like I got nothing for this. No point of real reference other than on social media having seen Asia Wilson do something similar, I think. But knowing that, that's definitely not meant for me. And yet still just the production value, the execution of it. I think that it took 3 takes yesterday. Pretty impressive. And then to see all the reaction off of it. Debo Samuel, I saw reacting to it yesterday. They could not have landed better. And the timing of this thing, the whole execution of it, will be I feel like it will be taught in classes moving forward. This reminds me, to a much smaller degree, of how I talked about that Howard commitment video that he put out that just was so well executed. And so that department continues to earn high marks. I'm glad. So Craig's with me here. Had never heard that song. DC just going all kind of curmudgeon today. If Carolina continues to get clobbered by Clemson, he will be unemployed. I guess talking about Shane Beamer. Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, all right, DC, we got it, man. Speaking of got it, looks like we got a guest popping in on the program. And he's becoming an expert in this. On the road. Oh, you're not even rolling solo here today, huh, Scott?
Not even rolling solo today, Tim. Nope, I got Natalie with me. We are en route to ACC Media Days.
Oh, how about that? I mean, this is the WCIV Sports Department, right?
This is the WCIV Sports Department, up and at it bright and early on our way to Charlotte. We will be passing by the Tim Hill Garage in just about an hour en route to Charlotte for the Media Days.
All right. So did you make the trip to Atlanta yesterday? You didn't, did you?
I did not. I was Natalie was anchoring our morning show, and I was hanging with the Stanley Cup yesterday.
That's right. It is a requirement. Every time Scott's on the show, he has to mention hockey within the first 75 seconds. Otherwise, it is not a paid endorsement for hockey that you're a big time NHL spokesman. I know how that goes. So Scott, it would be completely rude if you do all the talking here and you don't let Natalie talk, by the way. You're not going to be that guy, right?
No, she is more than wide open to talk. I'm sure she is more than happy to chat.
All right, so let's hear what did you make of SEC Media Days yesterday? Let's start with the Shane Beamer video. Natalie, I'm guessing you knew exactly what that was. Scott, I'm guessing you're like me. I had no clue what was going on there. What about you guys?
So I haven't actually seen the video yet, but I did hear a lot about it. I can speak for Scott that yes, I knew what the dance was. He perhaps did not, but I heard he performed it well. At least that was the, I guess the criticism that I heard.
I had no idea who Soulja Boy was. Had no clue whatsoever.
Come on. I even know who Soulja Boy is. That was the Superman back in the day. I thought they were.
Yeah, and then I found out what that meant, and I was like, wait a second, why are kids in my kids' schools doing the Superman when I found out what that meant?
You're so old, by the way, Scotty. Every time you sound like such a dad every time we talk. I love as you took how many ounces you got in that QT cup there?
I don't know. The company paid for it. I had to go all in for the 99-cent one.
And what are you going? Sweet tea there for us this
No.
morning?
It's the diet green tea.
You could not be older right now. I love it.
I'm wearing a brewery hat, so that's kind of cool.
Perfect.
I mean, beyond that, no, I look. I'm a total fuck. I can curse on your show. I forgot. I'm a total fucking dork, like complete. And I feel even more of a loser when I'm with, hanging with Natalie, who's like kind of in the cool kid club at the station. Sure. I don't talk to anybody at work. She's at least like semi-social at the station. She's semi-social there, knows people. I don't really know anybody there, but I kind of feel like I get caught up on all cultural events from her. But yeah, the Superman thing is, I now that I know that that's who Soulja Boy is, the Superman thing, I don't approve of my kids listening to that if they, I'm a lyrics guy. I don't think that would be an appropriate lyric.
But Scott, your kids are younger than mine, right? How old are your kids?
8 and 4.
Right. Of course you don't. Of course you don't approve of them. Trey says, I fear for Scott to review all his favorite songs and realize how many adult references they contain.
I'm telling you, I went to see Bare Naked Ladies, Gin Blossoms, and Toad the Wet Sprocket on Friday night. I guarantee you none of the references in that concert were anywhere close to what Soulja Boy is referencing.
Wow. You're such an old man, and I love it. All right. So I love, too, that Natalie hasn't even seen the social media video. That makes me feel like I got the finger on the pulse of all the kids here.
Well, why don't we do this? She has a phone. Why doesn't she watch it? Why don't she watches it while we're sitting here chatting, and then you can get her official. Just look up Gamecock Football on Twitter, and they post it.
Yesterday was, granted, I was moving yesterday, so I wasn't really in the Twitter sphere yesterday.
Moving apartments, I'm guessing, if we're really going to keep all the stereotypes together. That's perfect. We got old man dad over there, and you're moving from apartment to apartment. Don't even have time to check out social media video. Fantastic. And Greg says, wow, if you went to that concert, you are a dork.
I'm a dork?
A dork reference instead of a nerd.
First of all, Toad the Wet Sprocket, amazing. Dulcinea, one of the great albums of all time. Natalie had never heard of Toad the Wet Sprocket.
Has she ever heard of albums?
Yeah, probably has never heard of albums. No. He walks into the locker room to carry on Joyner, like put sunglasses on him.
And we need the play-by-play as you're watching it, Natalie. I like the real-time stuff.
Gamecock Football. It would be first thing yesterday morning. They posted it before they left for media day. So yeah, Toad the Wet Sprocket, amazing. Bare Naked Ladies were great. Gin Blossoms was the only one I was a little like iffy on. They got great. I mean, Hey Jealousy, Hear It From You, all great. But there's like one original Gin Blossom. So you're just seeing like a skeleton of what Gin Blossoms was. But the beer was cold and the hits were great. So it was
Wait a second. I see the reaction over there. Shut up, Scotty. Let's hear it.
Wait, I'm going to start it from the beginning.
That's it. Here we go.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I like the walk up, looking fly. Got to get the sweat off. Nice hat. Throw the shades on. All right. Oh yeah, I got to let the beat drop. Oh my god. This is oh wow, they went all out for this. The firecracker? Wow. This is...
There it is.
There it is.
I thought it kind of ended abruptly.
Right.
Like, there wasn't a beginning, middle, and end. It just kind of ended.
There was a lot going into this 24 seconds, so I can understand why it's only less than half a minute, but... Right. I mean, the choreography, I got to give props to it. The mise en scène really showing in this.
The what?
I got nothing.
What did she just say?
Love the creativity.
Wait, you got to explain to me. Yeah, what the?
That's like the aspects, the aesthetics of everything, the background, the lights, really
Was that French? Did you just drop French on us? Is that what that was?
That's from. Okay, I don't watch movies, not a big fan of movies, but that's one you got to know if you're, I guess, in the movie realm.
Okay.
Have you heard of that? Or am I just bringing that out of my?
No, and I'm going to Quebec next week. I still have never heard of mise en scène.
Okay, well there you go. You learned something.
All right, Scott is bringing this.
If I had to rate it, I'd give it maybe an 8.3, just because I feel like I would have liked it to be longer.
Okay. Fair enough. I think, wow, 8.3. I didn't even know you could go 0.1. I think the half stars are too high. Maintenance.
We're getting really technical.
Okay, impressive stuff. Scotty's trying to bring us back to the Stanley Cup. What was it like being in? How many times have you now been in the presence of the Stanley Cup after yesterday, Scotty? Was it the Ice Palace there in North Charleston?
Well, yeah, it started at the Ice Palace in North Charleston, but I actually had the invite to the private party. So I took off the 10 and 11 last night and went to the actual party with the cup last night. So it was pretty awesome. I was in 2018 when the Capitals won it. Jason Fitzsimmons, longtime Stingrays coach, was a scout with the Capitals. He got it for a day, and I just went there in like a working capacity. He lives in the next neighborhood over, and he had it out in his front yard, and they were just drinking beers and enjoying it. So I shot a little story, so I was in the presence of it then. Yesterday, Bednar brought it to the Ice Palace for 2.5 hours just to meet kids and whatever. Right. So I did that in a working capacity, but I went back to the party out on the Isle of Palms last night when they were a lot of beers deep. I'll tell you that much. And it was wild. It was awesome. I mean, it's the greatest trophy in all of sports to sit there and, and Betsy's he's got it for the day, and everyone was just so excited to be in the, the presence of the cup, and ton of drinks, ton of food. It was awesome. And I think the coolest thing is that, I think there's just an overall appreciation for hockey that, there were fans of the Devils and the Penguins and this, and Betsy is helping, them try to find their team from 91 that won the cup and finding names on it. I think there's just this overall appreciation that's really, really special when the Stanley Cup is in your presence. And the keeper of the cup, Phil Pritchard is there. That's the guy who follows it everywhere it goes since 1988. And, he's standing there on guard with the cup. And at 10:30, the cup has to go to bed. That's the number one rule. Cup goes to bed at 10:30. And, they pack it up. And like today, he jumped on a plane and flew from Charleston to Munich with the Stanley Cup. And it went Quebec to Chicago to Columbus to Charleston to Munich to Prague to Finland, Sweden, and then back to Western Canada. And then the 100 days for the Avalanche will be up, and, a new team will be fighting for the Stanley Cup.
So many things to get to here. All right, first of all, I don't know if I can ever take Jason's comments seriously. He weighs in and says, Beamer's video is not as cool as seeing Scott drive, talk, drink, and talk hockey. Scott is the ultimate cool dude.
Yeah.
Jason's suspended now for making comments on the show. Scott, burying the lead. Did you drink beer out of the Stanley Cup or not, man?
I did not drink beer out of the cup. I drank beer I had the cup in my arm and a beer in my other arm. The picture is on my Instagram, but I did not drink out of the cup. There were probably 100 people there, and and Jared Bednar is the only one that's allowed to hold up the cup. He's the only one that's allowed to hold it up. So I wasn't gonna have him pick up the cup and pour a drink into my mouth. It would have been kind of awkward in that setting to do that.
Wait a second. The coach of the Colorado Avalanche is the only one to hold it above waist level? What kind of weird What are you telling me? He was the only one to hold it up.
There were so many
The person whose cup it is that day is the only one who's allowed to pick the cup up. Everybody else has to pick. You can touch the cup, you could caress the cup, you could hug the cup, you could do whatever you want, but the only one that's allowed to actually hold it up is the person whose cup it is that day, and that's Jared Bednar.
What if you put a straw into the cup so you don't?
It would have been too tall for a straw. If you saw the picture, that was it was definitely well taller than
tall guy.
Yeah.
But wait a second. So there was just like a shrine. The Stanley Cup just stayed in one spot, and you weirdos just came by and like caressed it the whole party. Is that what happened?
Well, Jared walked in with it. He walked in, held it up everywhere. When it came to a place, the keeper of the cup drives the cup there. He's got like a rental car. He's got like a regular old rental car, and in the trunk of the rental car sits the Stanley Cup. And then
Wait a second. Case, I assume, in a case?
In a case, yes, in a case. And then he opens the case, and then Betsy picks it up and holds it up. Yesterday, Betsy took it out on his boat with like 5 of his like really close buddies that he played hockey with the Stingrays. And so they were on a golf cart driving around the Isle of Palms on a golf cart with the Stanley Cup on the golf cart yesterday.
Brilliant.
And then they rode the golf cart he lives right by the restaurant that he rented out the restaurant. So they drove on a golf cart over to the restaurant with the Stanley Cup. Betsy held up the Stanley Cup, and then he placed it on a table, and they kept it on the table the whole party. So whoever wanted to have a moment with the cup could have a moment with the cup. And then Betsy just, he mingled around and ate and drank and everything like that. And whoever wanted to take pictures with the cup, Betsy came over, took pictures, whatever. You can take a picture, find your favorite player, your favorite team, whatever you want to do. And then, it was just like a regular party, but just like one of the guests at the party was Lord Stanley's cup that was just sitting in the corner of the party. It was amazing. It was awesome.
This is a tremendous breakdown. I got 3 more things before we move on and we actually start talking.
There's several rules. Okay. Number 1, only the person whose cup it is that day can hold it up. Number 2, goes to bed at 10:30. Number 3, you're not allowed to bring it in a swimming pool, and it cannot go to a strip club. Because I believe it was Mark Messier brought it to a strip club in like 87, and it did not go well. And then apparently, I think Mario Lemieux dropped it in a swimming pool, and it ended up sitting at the bottom of a swimming pool when the Penguins won it, and there was some definite issues with that. So, I think it's accumulated rules over the years, but for the most part, you've got free reign with the Stanley Cup when it's there at the party.
Okay, I need to know a few things here. I need to know 3 things. First of all, I asked about the case. What does the case look like if we ever see the Stanley Cup in some kind of luggage situation? Just a regular black case, silver case?
Black case, and they literally check it on the airplane. They pay the $50 and they check it on the airplane. They fly commercial wherever they go, and literally fly commercial and check it like any other bag.
So if you're listening to this, where are they going today? Did you say over in Europe?
Munich.
If you're listening to this in Germany right now, the Munich airport, you might see it on the luggage carousel at any moment.
Absolutely.
That's the weirdest thing ever. Secondly, no one drank out of the Stanley Cup last night?
At the party, nobody drank out of the Stanley Cup. During the day, he had it in his backyard and on the boat, and they were drinking it. And I know you're going to ask next. 14 Bud Lights fit in it.
That is 14 Bud Lights. I like how you could just go just Bud Lights.
Well, they were drinking Bud Lights.
No idea.
The exact words from Jared Bednar were 14 Bud Lights fit in it.
Okay, fair enough. My last one was, how is the protector of I think it's the best trophy in sports, but especially the hockey championship trophy. How is that protected by a guy who looks like he's been an accountant for at least 30 years and not much more of a real hockey guy who's at least missing a couple of teeth and was a former goon in the sport? I don't get it. Oh, I dropped out on you? Okay, I'll be happy to repeat because you guys are still holding strong with me. Can you hear me, or did that one drop out? I think hockey took us out of that one. I'll take you out real quick and try to pop you back in. Let's see if it's going to work. The technical difficulties rolling to ACC Media Days. Oh, much better angle now. What about you? You hear me now again?
Yep, I hear you. I lost you on the start of your last question. Something about the keeper of the cup.
Yeah. How is the keeper of the cup a dude who looks like he's been an accountant for maybe 30 years or so, and not a hockey-looking dude with missing teeth, and a guy who can clearly defend one of the best trophies, if not the best trophy in sports?
He's a historian. I believe he's like the curator of the Hockey Hall of Fame, and that's where the Stanley Cup resides when it's not on the road for those 100 days. So he lives in Toronto, and he's like the curator of the Hockey Hall of Fame. He's a hockey historian, and then he brings the cup all around the world for 100 days every year.
Okay. I was very surprised. I did see the story. You can check it out. Eisberg WCIV is the Twitter handle there for Scotty, where he did the story on the Stanley Cup yesterday and talked to the guy who's in charge of the Stanley Cup. I was very surprised at what he had to say, first of all, and how he looked. A little disappointed that they don't have someone in full hockey sweater, like a Stanley Cup hockey sweater, and a guy who looks like he played hockey for at least 20 years protecting that man.
Well, you didn't recognize him yesterday because he was just in his golf shirt, but he's the guy that walks the cup onto the ice at the end of the final game every year. He's the one in the tuxedo that wears the white gloves. Every year, every Stanley Cup, he's the one that walks out onto the ice with the white gloves and the tuxedo. That's him.
I would think the NHL could then spring for another guy to be the muscle around protecting the cup, but I guess maybe that is also part of who you're handing it to, who gets to have it for the day, right? It might be unnecessary.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It was it's a cool trophy. It's history, and as Jared said yesterday, he goes, "Man, my name's gonna be on."
Oh, the old technical difficulties. Jared Bednar, the coach of the Colorado Avalanche, former coach of the Charleston Stingrays, by the way, is why Scotty has the connection here. The name will be on the Stanley Cup forever. It is fantastic. And I think Mike Uva was talking about this from Gamecock Central the other day about the trophies and the whole thing. Cam Young just won the claret jug there for the British Open and said he's going to see how many beers fit in that. So I guess we need to break that down next. I think we got you through a bad patch there, Scotty. You were saying Jared Bednar is just saying that his name's going to be on the cup forever. Is that where he was yesterday for the?
I think he said 60 years. As the rungs move up, I think your name ends up on there for about 60 years, and then I think they take the rung off and store it or wherever put it in the Hall of Fame because the cup doesn't get bigger, but the rungs will eventually move up.
Help me out with the rungs. Is it just the coach's name on there? Is it the entire organization, players and coaches? How does that work?
Whole team. Man. Yep, the whole team. I think there's 30 names that go on the cup. So the whole team, whole team plus the coaches are all engraved in the Stanley Cup.
Good stuff. Clearly, you guys at WCIV are obviously Clemson biased, going to ACC Media Days instead of going to SEC and ACC Media Days. So from your Clemson-loving perspective as a South Carolina grad, what did you make of Gamecock's Media Day yesterday?
Yeah, I was really impressed with, Shane Beamer is an enigmatic personality, and he came in there with swag yesterday, and he kept it. I thought he was fantastic. That's exactly what South Carolina needs. For the years that Will Muschamp was there, it was just so drab on Media Day. There was just nothing exciting about Will Muschamp on Media Day. Shane Beamer took the podium and he took the platform to promote his program, and that's what he did. I think he comes off as super likable. And like he said yesterday, last year they weren't talking about our football team. They might have been talking about the fact that we had a new coach, but they weren't talking about us. Now I think they're talking about us as a football team. They're talking about our recruiting, the transfer portal, obviously Spencer Rattler. And I thought Shane Beamer did all the right things. And for us in the Low Country, awesome to have DeCarrion there. We've known DeCarrion since he's 13 years old. And to see him get that opportunity, he is stuck with it. There are very few players that have stuck with it like DeCarrion Joyner has. And DeCarrion Joyner has stuck with it. And so that's really fulfilling to see him at media day. The suit choice, the peach suit with the floral shirt, I don't know if that was my style, but I thought he wore it well, and the fact that he did that, it was on the 13th anniversary of his dad passing away, and he said this was something that he'd always dreamed of doing, and to do it on that anniversary of his dad passing was really, really special to him. So yeah, I thought that the carry-on story yesterday was a great one, and ultimately he got there because of his leadership and his maturity, and like Shane Beamer said, I mean, this is a dude who is a big-time recruit, and he's winning the spring practice special teams player of the year award in spring. Like, that shows the kind of effort that he puts through and the respect he has from his teammates.
Multiple things there. I think the carry-on Joyner is very happy to hear that you did not endorse his fashion choice. I think he's feeling good about that. Also, what did you make of? Did you hear him say that he's basically splitting his time, or he plans on playing about half and half between quarterback and wide receiver?
Yeah, and I don't. To me, the carry-on Joyner does well when.
Oh, the old technical difficulties again, sliding in there. Let's see if we do the reset and we can get Scotty's take back in there. I think I see him popping up.
There you go.
Sorry,
yeah.
you at the very beginning of that, you popped out. The carry-on Joyner does well
when he does one thing, and I just feel like, I mean, look, Spencer Rattler is a 5-star quarterback. The carry-on Joyner is not going to overtake Spencer Rattler as a quarterback. I just think it's best for his future to put him at one place and maybe once in a while as an option at quarterback just to throw him in there. But he does keep defenses honest now that we've seen that he can throw the ball. We saw that in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. But I would like to see pick wide receiver or whatever it's going to be. Excuse me, and just stick with it. And I just think that gives him the best opportunities for his future.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I hear you. That makes sense. But has it been a matter of not sticking at wide receiver, or has it been a matter of not a tremendous wide receiver? To me, it doesn't seem like he's a wide receiver. He hasn't made very many plays out there.
I know. Well, look, I don't think he's overtaking Spencer Rattler as a quarterback. Do you? I mean, he played very well in a game against North Carolina. I don't think that means he's, going to be a top-tier quarterback in the SEC. I think he has the athletic prowess to be a top-tier wide receiver, but I think he's just always been so divided in what he's doing. I think if you just stick him there and that's all he does and doesn't think about quarterback or whatever else it may be, maybe it works. I don't know. I think the carry-on Joyner as an NFL athlete, you just got to figure out where he belongs. I mean, that's the ultimate. What exactly is he going to do in the NFL?
But as you say that, Scott, I'm going back through the mental Rolodex. Savell Newton played wide receiver his freshman year at South Carolina because he was just too talented to keep off the field. He made plays. Hines Ward, a classic example of a kind of a slash guy in college, made a bunch of plays wherever he was put. Carry-on Joyner hadn't made a bunch of plays wide receiver.
Right. Well, how about I go Gamecock on you? How about Corey Jenkins? Didn't he make it to the NFL as a linebacker after playing quarterback in South Carolina?
True. And you're maybe go even more local for you, Bruce Ellington, a guy who played high school quarterback but got on the field kind of immediately and made plays at wide receiver. The carry-on Joyner has to be a wide receiver in the NFL, right? I mean, there is where else would you put him? A defensive back or quarterback? I don't know.
Well, there's nowhere else to put him.
Okay, and Craig adds he's the fourth or fifth best wide receiver in my opinion. It's going to be fascinating to see how that works out. I mean, nobody saw that bowl game performance coming. So to pretend like we have a good idea of how this is going to work out, I think would be kind of silly. As I get you guys out, wondering what are you expecting there from Dabo and Clemson today, and what did you make of Clemson that video on social media? Scott, did you see the one with Dabo getting a bunch of criticism there doing the gritty in his pink suit?
Yes, I saw. First of all, he raised like $300,000 for charity, so I'm not gonna ever dog a guy that raises money for breast cancer charity, ever. I will not dog his outfit, I will not dog his fedora, and I will not dog his dance because the guy raised a ton of money for charity. So I will not dog that one bit at all. You can dress up however you want. Now, Natalie could probably judge his gritty better than I can. How was his gritty?
See, that's a tough question. I want to say he did it well. Perhaps, maybe, considering he's an old. I'm not gonna.
He's very dad.
He's very dad.
Yeah, he's very dad.
Taking back to the crew neck. Remember the crew neck of last year? Or no, what was he wearing? That one outfit last year. It was the orange head to toe. That was a very dad outfit.
Yeah, the dad outfits on Dabo have come out. You remember a couple of years ago, somebody caught him at like Belk at the mall the night before Christmas, and he was like wearing like his Lee jeans or something like that. Like that was a pretty dad outfit he was rocking.
But when it comes to the gritty itself, I feel like he had the technique down.
My question is like.
I'm gonna have to pop those guys out of there. The old, you would think the corridor rolling through. I guess he is probably. Let's see. He said he was headed from Charleston to Charlotte, was about an hour out, so he's probably on the middle of I-77 right now. Chester-ish, might be having the signal issues. That sounds about right. Appreciate Scotty and Natalie popping in there. The WCIV-TV crew. Let's see if we can get him in one last time. No, they're completely done there from a technical standpoint. Thank you guys for hanging in there, being patient with that. That's how it works sometimes. Dadpo. That's pretty good there, Craig. Oh, we'll see if we can get Scott and Natalie out on a swan song. It looks like they're back in. Guys popped out on me. You near Chester? Is that where you're at, Scotty?
No, we're at Garner's Ferry Road.
Oh, right in Columbia. You shouldn't have any problems with the connection. It looks like maybe Natalie's in charge of that, or maybe she's just charging her phone now.
She's charging her phone, doing all the kid things, doing the gram. She's doing the gram. Are you doing the gram?
You're the first.
Taking notes for ACC Day, actually.
Oh yeah,
always working.
Yeah, you were the first one who mentioned Instagram, by the way. It was not her, and thank you for not referring to it as the gram to begin with. Might have immediately gotten kicked out of there, Scotty.
Well, what else are you on? Are you on? You're not on TikTok.
Not on TikTok. No.
Good for you.
Are you on? What other ones are there? Are you on?
Yeah, asking the wrong guy.
I don't I've done in like 2015.
No Vine.
No Vine. My social media game does not stretch far beyond Twitter and Instagram.
We already had to talk to him about dating apps. One of our producers on Hinge. I did not know what Hinge was. So
never heard of it.
He asked about Bumble, and I was
Bumble
like,
and Hinge.
Done.
I didn't know about those.
Wow, no clue at all either. You're speaking my language there, Scotty. Good stuff. Thank you guys for popping in. Much appreciated. Good luck with the rest of the trip. Where is ACC Kickoff at exactly?
The Westin.
The Westin in downtown Charlotte, or uptown Charlotte is how they do it. Is that the deal?
Uptown, yeah. So we're actually going first. We're going to go to Providence Day and catch up with an old friend, Chad Greer.
Again, maybe it's the Fort Jackson security they got there, the big time internet connections. Maybe we need to work on Scott's connectivity. But he said he was headed to see Will Greer's dad in Charlotte first. That's classic, since he's the former Oceanside coach down there in the Charleston area. And I know Scotty's covered the Greer family for a long, long time. Excuse me there. Scott Eisberg, you can't make that stuff up. Hanging out with the Stanley Cup yesterday on the way to ACC Kickoff, their version of Media Days up in Charlotte, and the well-qualified take on Shane Beamer and company as well. Scotty is a South Carolina grad. I first met him when he was a South Carolina student 20 years ago now, probably right around there. And so that's why it's hilarious for me to hear him now having taken on the complete dad persona with the younger WCIV-TV sports staff member with Natalie there. Good stuff. What a couple. What an odd couple headed to ACC kickoff there. That's what time it is right now from a local sports standpoint and just, I guess, college football standpoint as well. You know, Big 12 Media Days kind of kicked it off. Then the SEC has gone full bore and taken things over like they try to do all the time. And the ACC kind of slides in there too, which I've never quite understood their timing. I guess they've done it a little bit before, the SEC before sometimes too. It's all about how important football is to your market, I think. And Columbia, South Carolina is right up there amongst those where it's most important. And Shane Beamer was mentioning this yesterday while making his pitch to recruits. Clearly, he was asked about just the era of name, image, and likeness and where South Carolina is kind of situated in the haves and the have-nots. Nick Saban put that out there. That was more the national story, right? He says Alabama's obviously the haves. It's working. It can be pretty good for them. He's not sure how it's going to work out for the have-nots. I think from a national standpoint, South Carolina probably has seen more of the have-nots than the haves. But Shane Beamer's point is football is really, really important in South Carolina. There are no pro sports. Columbia is the capital city. So he says that he feels like South Carolina is positioned as well as anyone in the country. If the Gigi Jackson thing goes down, that lends a lot of instant credibility to those words. Spencer Rattler coming to South Carolina, even though I think everyone involved in this thing, and it has to say name, image, and likeness, not involved in it at all, because then that would be kind of admitting it's pay for play, right? It's basically the only way you can get in NCAA trouble these days. But the fact that he's at South Carolina tells, I think, all of us who have a lick of common sense that South Carolina is competing in name, image, and likeness. Now, how likely would have that marriage been because of the Oklahoma connection between Rattler and Shane Beamer, having been on staff there at Oklahoma? How much was it? He's at a major SEC program and has, what's the kind way to put it from a quarterback perspective? He had a position that could use Spencer Rattler's services. We don't know what Luke Doty's going to be at quarterback. We do know that there's been limited time. A talented kid out of high school earned his way on the field in one of the worst seasons that South Carolina's ever seen at the end of the year, and earned a starting quarterback job this time last year. And when he was injured, it was a difficult thing. Actually, even when he was not injured, right? We don't know what he would have been. We haven't seen him be a productive SEC quarterback at this point, but we probably shouldn't rule out that he can be. And maybe this Spencer Rattler situation turns out to be the best thing possible for him, because again, I heard it yesterday for the first time, and it should have dawned on me beforehand, but the importance Shane Beamer putting out there for Spencer Rattler having watched Jalen Hurts come to Oklahoma and have a dominant season, a Heisman Trophy finalist season, after having been forced to, basically, having been beaten out by Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama, and if he was going to play college football after that, being forced to transfer. Now, that's not quite the situation at Oklahoma, because you got to throw in Lincoln Riley leaving the school. I think Rattler is kind of on record of saying that he had decided to transfer as soon as he lost his job to Caleb Williams kind of in the middle of the season. And that makes sense. But then you throw in that the quarterback that beat you out is no longer even at your old school, could have stuck around. Then you throw in Brent Venables in the mix. The Clemson defense coordinator taking over the job at Oklahoma is an odd Carolina connection. And the job that he has now, and I know he was just speaking at Big 12 Media Days not too long ago, just saying that he's going to be him, and the challenge is there. the fact that Baylor's picked to win the Big 12, Oklahoma isn't, just shows me where that program is with him taking it over. And man, I would not want to be anyone who took that job from Lincoln Riley, but especially a first-year head coach with a defensive reputation in 2022. Brent Venables is obviously a tremendous coach and took Clemson to a ridiculously high level. But that's different than being a head coach, especially being the head coach at the University of Oklahoma. Another fascinating part, and that's way up there, I think, on my list of things to watch in 2022 from a college football standpoint. But going back, name, image, and likeness was the question that was presented to Shane Beamer. He said South Carolina's is uniquely situated and takes the backseat to no one. Certainly considers South Carolina as a have in the name, image, and likeness world. We'll continue to see, right? It seems to be right now it's kind of Texas A&M and maybe everybody else. Texas A&M and Miami, I think, have made the biggest national headlines as far as dollars attached and big-time prospects attached. I guess Tennessee, you got to put them in the mix. On3 reporting that they've got a deal in place for a California quarterback for $8 million. Texas, Ohio State, all seem to be the haves, not surprisingly, in this name, image, and likeness new world. South Carolina not mentioned. But if the G.G. Jackson thing comes to fruition and he turns out to not only be a really good player, but make the South Carolina basketball program relevant in what would seem to be his only year of college basketball, that could help boost the reputation for sure. If Spencer Rattler goes on to kind of regain his form of the first season and put up a bunch of numbers and gets Carolina relevant in the SEC East this year, that could change things as well. Because I guess we should have kind of seen this. Bryce Young reportedly went into last season with $1 million of name, image, and likeness deals already wrapped up. What we haven't seen that much, what has happened with the Kansas kid who caught an overtime touchdown to beat Texas maybe last year and instantly got a commercial or got like a commercial in the next week or two, something like that. That's the only thing that I can remember that happened during the season where you could see an obvious like cause and effect from a name, image, and likeness standpoint in college sports so far. I think we're going to see more and more examples of that now that we're a year removed from the first part of this, right? The rule being a rule or the opportunity being the opportunity. And we're going to see more and more companies trying to capitalize immediately on the immediacy and the relevance of these college football players. Because I think from a national standpoint, it does fade pretty quickly. From a regional standpoint or, a state standpoint, South Carolina, Marcus Lattimore still talked about these days, right? Last time he played was 2013, 14? It's been a long time. But it's a different type of tax bracket marketing type level, I guess. When DJ Uiagalelei was mentioned to be in like those Dr. Pepper commercials, I think. That was, I think, the first one that I heard of kind of on a national level, first player attached to a national level type endorsement. And obviously that hasn't worked out tremendously well. What was it yesterday? The news came back out of the Davey O'Brien Award watch list. And we are in that time of year as well. And I will by and large ignore all of them. But someone pointed out on social media that South Carolina's quarterback and Spencer Rattler was one of the 35 names mentioned on the Davey O'Brien Award watch list. And Clemson's quarterback was not on that list, which just unfathomable. I put out on Twitter at the time that a year removed from this time last year, we were talking about, I think it was Pro Football Focus or somebody out there had ranked college quarterbacks, kind of power rankings, 1 through whatever it is, 130. And Luke Doty was like 105, 110 maybe in the country. From the South Carolina standpoint, I think, I forget how high DJU was on that list, but really high, top 10, I'm sure. So fast forward a year, and now I'm sure another top 10 guy in there, maybe top 5 or 3, or he might have been number 1, Spencer Rattler at the time, South Carolina's quarterback, and DJU coming off a really disappointing season and trying to figure it out. It's the brilliance of college football, right? I mean, that's just a year, but the week to week, you don't know quite what to expect. I saw percentages yesterday, I think, maybe the day before, College Football Live on ESPN putting up the usual suspects expected to get in the college football playoff. It's like an 80% chance for Alabama. I think Ohio State's the only team that has, according to whatever their formula is, their playoff predictor. Ohio State's like an 83% chance to get in there, something like that. And it's Georgia and Clemson all over 50%. And then Notre Dame somewhere around 20%. That's the ones they put up. So the usual suspects expected to get in the college football playoff. I get it. I guess that's how you got to cover college football from a national standpoint. But I would have been pointing out the Cincinnati anomaly last year. And that's what I feel like we always fail to do well enough when we're talking about pretty much anything, but especially sports, about how much you can predict and do it with a lot of data, a lot of information, not irresponsibly and just throwing stuff out there, but how inaccurate that is so often. And how that's really the beauty of, that's what I think most of us get attached to, the fact that Cincinnati can make a run to the college football playoff. I want to see more of that. I want to see more non-usual suspects in the college football playoff. I'm hoping that name, image, likeness can help make that happen, as opposed to separate the haves and the have-nots. Like Nick Saban is weirdly talking about competitive balance in the whole thing. It is unbalanced. I'm hoping that name, image, likeness can help go the other way. DC. I think somebody needs to give DC a hug this morning. Hopefully DJU has another bad year. Craig says, I wonder if a recruit will ever get $3 to $6 million deal, and when it's time for the draft, just says, I'm good. Why risk my body in the pros? I'm set for life right now. That would be a strong move, right? Or what about this, especially in today's world? Just go into TV, right? Just go like, nah, I'm gonna take the Fox deal, being the first ever non-player analyst. I know I was projected to be a first rounder, but man, you get hit hard. And that TV gig is sweet, and what they're paying is awesome, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And maybe I'll put on some exhibitions. Maybe we'll just go, I'll start a flag football league, like the Live series of football, right? You want to sell the health benefits, the life benefits, and maybe that's where it'll go. All right, DC admitting he's salty this morning. Thank you for admitting that, sir. Thank you guys for being a part of this morning's program. Love talking football with you. And again, coming off of the Gamecock speaking at SEC Media Days, obviously a great time to talk it. Troy says if DJ has another bad year, it'll be a short year for him. Yeah, I think a lot like where Spencer Rattler ended up getting to at Oklahoma. I don't know if they have a guy waiting in the wings that is poised to take over quite as much, but I'm sure Troy feels like they are. I don't know if Clemson's offense right now, with an unproven offensive coordinator, is anywhere close to where Lincoln Riley had his offense with the Spencer Rattler situation. So not quite apples to apples there. But we'll see. And I think Troy's right. We'll see pretty quick. And I think we'll see pretty quick from the South Carolina standpoint how legit Spencer Rattler and the conversation of him being amongst the best SEC quarterbacks this season, how that'll go. And then attached right to that is Marcus Satterfield's offensive coordinator reputation, how much his stock will rise or continue to stay where it is right now. It's all part of what makes it so much fun to talk college football, even in July, but especially off of SEC Media Days. Again, tomorrow we'll be talking about what went down today. We'll certainly talk a lot more Gamecock football as well, but Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, and Kentucky, we'll see if they have anything interesting to say. Tomorrow it will be Auburn, Tennessee, and Texas A&M, a notable day for sure to wrap up SEC Media Days. That'll wrap up today's program. Special thanks to the WCIV-TV, ABC affiliate down in Charleston, sports crew, Scott Eisberg, Natalie joining us from as well en route on the way to ACC Media Days. That's how this show works. Real time, real events, and real peace signs from DC on the YouTube live stream. Please subscribe, like, and comment and all that stuff if you can. Help the show grow. It would be greatly appreciated. And you're just listening to the show, greatly appreciated as well. That'll do it for the July 20th edition of Tim Hill Unrestricted Free Agent.